Okay, I'm Joel. This is Devyani behind me. Over there we have Esther and Sotri, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Korean today.
Thank you. So just a brief history of Yeoksa. There were three predecessor states until the 7th century. So there were three independent Korean states that united and became Korea. And this unified state was an independent country until 1905, which marked the end of the Russo-Japanese War. And at that point, Japan claimed to take Korea under its wing, and so Korea was annexed in 1910. And so we're a colony of Japan until 1945, which was the end of World War II. And Korea was then separated into North and South Korea, as it is today. And in 1953, the 38th parallel was established, which separates the two countries. And even as recently as last year, we have very tense inter-Korea relationships. So this is a map of Korea. Mostly focuses on South Korea, which is where I'm from, so I can talk about that more than North Korea. And Seoul, which is the capital, is marked by the star. It's really high up. So yes. This is a Korean flag. We have many Confucius ideas, and so we have the idea of the yin and yang, and each of the things in the corner symbolize the four elements, so sky, water, fire, and earth. Just wanted to share something, I guess, fun about our culture. We have 3 unique holidays. I don't know if they're different from the United States. So we have Valentine's Day, February 14th, which is when, unlike in the U.S. where it's an exchange, two-way exchange of gifts, in Korea, actually, girls give presents to their boyfriend. And then on White Day, the guys give the girls presents. And then on Black Day, it's actually for singles who go out and eat jjajangmyeon together, which is black mung bean noodles. And so I'm just going to share some more food, because I'm sure everyone had breakfast, and so they're not going to be hungry at all. So what we're known for best is kimchi, and a lot of people assume that it's just pickled cabbage, but that's not true. We also do radish and cucumber, green onions. So now you know that there's more out there. This is a very traditional dish. It's made in a clay pot, and so the rice kind of becomes scorched, and you put in a whole bunch of vegetables and you mix it. And unlike in America and a lot of Western cultures where you have multiple courses, in Korea you have one main course and then you have lots of side dishes. So, unique thing about our culture. And this is an image of people wearing traditional clothes. It's also a very traditional activity. We eat a lot of rice. We even make our desserts out of rice. So they are pounding on the rice to make it soft and to make rice cakes. And these are rice cakes. So like many cultures, we have traditional dance. This is one of the instruments that are used in traditional dance. People will either sit in a half circle and play the drums, or they will wear it and they will dance while they are carrying the drums.
You want to view the video? Or?
I don't know if we're going to have time.
Okay,
so if we have time, we'll come back and watch some of the videos, and if not, we'll shoot. This is a traditional Korean instrument, and she's wearing a very traditional Korean gown. And the link is actually a modern song, because a lot of English has found its way into Korean pop music, and K-pop is a very popular genre, and it's diffused to other Asian countries as well as the United States. So, oh my goodness, I did not know. Okay, well, I had noticed the animation before I put it in, but he doesn't actually wink. This is the 10,000 won bill, which is actually equivalent to $10 of U.S. money. And this is Sejong Daewang, which is Sejong the Great. He's the emperor who made the Korean language. He decided that at the time, the language we were using, which is Chinese, was not accessible enough to the people, and so he basically sat down and created his own. It was originally called Hunmin Cheongnam, but today it's just called Hangul.
Okay, so about the Korean language, They have 14 consonants and 10 vowels, and then you can have up to 11 vowel combinations. And the language is I can't pronounce it.
Agglutinative.
Agglutinative? Okay. It basically means that you kind of smush morphemes together to make words rather than each word representing an independent morpheme on its own. And then also it's a subject-object-verb language. And just like in English, a modifier will come before the thing it modifies. That's also there in Korean. And then, like a lot of other South Asian languages, it has honorifics, which is you have different endings to, I think, verbs? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, verbs. When you're speaking to someone superior to you. So it could be like a teacher, your parents, an elder, anyone like that.
And Korean culture is very big on age, so even if it's someone who's a year older than you, you would use the honorific until you mutually decide that you were, to literally translate, you dropped the honorific.
And then there's also a lot of words that have been borrowed from other languages.
So these two actually mean the same thing. 국민학교 and 초등학교 both mean elementary school. However, one of them is of Japanese origin from when we were a colony of Japan. And actually, Korea has started a huge movement to phase out a lot of the loan words that we have in our language. But we do use also a lot of men-in-Chinese vocabulary as well. So you can't read the newspaper without being able to read Chinese, which is really unfortunate because I can't read the newspaper.
So this is an outline of what we did in Linguist Assistant. First we developed a lexicon of adjectives, nouns, and verbs. And then we went on to create phrase structure rules, which we did with clauses, where we identified like word order, and then nouns. And then we did some spell-out rules with pronouns, verb tenses, and grammatical rules. And a lot of the grammatical rules use a suffix, so we made tables with that. And then finally we did structural adjustment rules, where we have grammatical rules as semantic rules. So here's our lexicon for adjectives. I like munshun, which means scary. I don't know, I like that word. Excellent. And then this is our verb lexicon, where we have the stem and the gloss, the English gloss, and then we characterize it with yin and yang, which Joel will go into later. That's how that happens. And then we have nouns and their glosses, and then the ending is very important, whether it ends in a consonant or a vowel, for what suffix you add to the end, which will describe, which will indicate that it's either an object or a subject of the sentence. And then we created a base structure rule for clauses where we specified word order. So we have subject, object, verb in a clause. And then for noun phrases in a noun phrase, we'd have an adjective phrase and a noun.
So pronouns in Korean are very similar to English pronouns. You just have a new translation for these. But unlike English, there is a difference between the first inclusive and just first exclusive. So we just have the new translations for all of those, and that's it for pronouns.
So, I'm sorry. Okay, so the next part that we have is verbs. The verbs are the single most important part of the sentence, just because it tells you what the action is going on. That's really big. Since it's an SOV language, the verbs always come at the end and they are not movable. That means you always have to have the verb at the end of the sentence. But what's really important, kind of cool, is that the tense is indicated by a suffix at the end of the verb. In English we use a lot of special cases of words, but in Korean there's a very detailed system of how they do that. So right here, there are, I think we had 6 different types of verbs that we could go into. There's 3 major cases. There's yin, yang, and neutral. But each one of those cases, yin and yang had specialized sub-cases for them. So we have yin and yang that do normal things, but then we have special rules for words that are yang that end in o, or words that are yang that end in a consonant, and as opposed to the general yang rule. And then we have the same thing with yin. Any word that is a yin word that ends in l is different than a generic yin word, and we have different endings based on that. So here's the conjugation. So as you can see, we have different different rules for different words that end with different letters. So for example, with a yin word that's normal, you would add noinda onto the end, probably butchering that. But if you have an L at the end of the word, you would just you would add that suffix without the end. So, and here's the continuation. Like I said, we had 6 in total. So, for example, if we look at the word go, which means see, and if we want to say like in the present tense, it would become bonda, because the add-in for yang o that or yang word that ends with an o is the nda. And similarly, we have go or ga becomes ganda, good becomes good noinda. Sorry about this, by the way. And mul becomes muloinda because of the different endings and the different cases of the word.
Alright, so nouns and pronouns are not conjugated in the sense that the root word doesn't change in Korean. What happens instead is everything, regardless of whether it's a subject or an object, has a suffix added to it to indicate what it is. Even though there is a very specific subject or word order, we always add those suffixes to show what they are. So,
Next slide.
yeah. So here are some grammatical roles and semantic roles. Basically, the idea is grammatically what you know as subject. Semantically, it's really acting as an agent, so something that's doing whatever the verb is. And in order for the program to understand what it really is, to distinguish the two, we have to set these rules. So basically here, in the input, we're saying, so if it's acting as a subject, then, if it's acting as an agent, then it's really a subject grammatically. So this is setting the subject as most agent-like, and this one is the same thing, but we're doing this for object because grammatically, what's object semantically is the patient or what's receiving the action. So we just do that here.
And so if you have a subject, then it's indicated with subject indicator. And so you have for first, second, and third person on the top, and then for the 2 rows, it depends on what the subject is ending with. If it's either a vowel or a consonant, depends on what ending it gets. And then the same thing applies for objects, but they have a different object indicator, and that too depends on whether it ends in a consonant or a vowel.
Here are some examples of what happened after we implemented everything. So John is Johan, but the EE ending shows that that's the subject, and then we have the verb for what, and then we show that it's how it's acting depending on where it is in the sentence, basically.
And this just shows which rules were applied to make it conjugate or to have the perfect suffix. So the next couple slides are the same sentence and for each part of the sentence and which rules were applied. So like Sentry said, Johan becomes Johani because there's a spell out rule, it's a noun. So you apply the grammatical rule, which adds the EE, the subject suffix. So this one just shows the implementation of the structural rule where it moves the adjective in front of the noun. So Johan이 좋은 책을 읽었다. So Johan is still John. The double E's signify that he is the subject. 좋은 is good, and so it comes before the word for book is 책. And then because John read the book, you add the EUL to the end of book to make it the object. and then ILG is read, and then you add the UHTDAH to make past tense. So one of the things that hindered our progress was the fact that I never learned Korean in a classroom, and so we're sort of making up the rules as we went along, and we kind of made rules as we found them necessary. So this shows the process of making our verb table. And so I'm guessing this is sort of what's like when you're in the field and you're talking with native speakers and trying to figure out what that language is like. And so kind of put down a whole bunch of verbs, write down the glosses, and then the vowels are categorized by yang, yin, and neutral, and so different combinations of vowels fall into these categories. And so I wrote down the present, past, and future suffixes, and then look for exceptions. And so it takes a lot longer than one would expect. And I think that's one of the things we learned, because we make a rule and then we find out that it didn't work for a sentence that we're working with, so we'd have to go back and change the rule and rework it.